actually I'll jump to AutoCAD first, because we've got this kind of things to check before you import your model. Couple of pretty important things. So this is the drawing that we're going to pull in, number 4 rose angle. Okay, building wise, reasonably happy with that, reasonably confident. I think we've got most of the information pretty much correct. The shape of the site is just impossible to tell what was going on there. So you know, that's the bit that's the huge question mark over this shape. Could be one big long slope. I cannot tell. It's all just a mess back there. You can't see through anything. Okay, but the critical things here are to check that it's close to 0, 0. So I'm just going to look at the plan view, and what I generally do is just draw a line from 0, 0, and then I can see how long that line is. So just draw a line from 0, 0. Okay, have a look how far that is. We're okay. Okay, that's not very far. If I list that line, length 250 meters, that's not going to impact the model too much. Okay, if that was 25 million millimeters, I would be a bit more concerned, because 3D Studio has an accuracy setting in it. It's not the same as CAD. To make it operate reasonably quickly, it has to approximate the numbers, so it shaves off a bit of the numbers, and that can end up with objects not meeting. You can end up with little gaps between things. They're microscopic gaps, but it all ends up pretty messy if that happens. And things that were originally flat can end up all crumpled and crinkled. So you've got to watch out for that. Usually the problem is you've started making a model using the Ordnance Survey, and it's in its actual position in the planet, and so it's miles away from 0, 0, which is Greenwich. Okay, so we're okay with that. We need to check that there's no blocks in the model. So if you just type in the letter B for the blocks command and drop this little arrow down, there's nothing here. Okay, if this was a pretty extensive list, what you would do is save the model as another version. So I might call it 4R no blocks perhaps, and then explode any blocks that are in that drawing. Because when they go to 3D Studio, it's just a nightmare. It becomes a massive list, and you just spend half a day trawling through this list. So I really hate it when I end up with a model of somebody hasn't kind of done that beforehand. It can be a real mess trying to put it back together into something manageable. What you're wanting is the layer names to convert directly to objects. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, I lost count there. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I've only got 20 layer names there that I'm interested in, the ones that actually got names. 0 you can't get rid of anyway, and def points has come here through a dimension. So there must have been a dimension in a drawing somewhere, and def points comes with that, and you can't purge either of those two. They can't be got rid of, but they also won't go to 3D Studio because there's nothing on them, so they'll just get left behind. So our 20 layers will become 20 objects in 3D Studio, which isn't a massive list to deal with. Okay, just so you know, the layer names here, with anything that's kind of communal to the site, we're just using this 3SI. So the pavement and the road is, you find that in all the models. It's because it's kind of abuts every site, but the ones for this build in particular all start with 4R, 4 rose angle. Okay, so I didn't do anything to the drawing there, so I'm just going to close it without saving. Okay, so in 3D Studio, first thing we do is check that the units are in meters. So let's customize, unit setup, metric meters, and then check the system unit setup. 1 unit equals 1 meter. Okay, this just keeps the numbers down, and it tends to be the favoured type of units for most of the material that comes into 3D Studio. The majority of the world is using metric, and meters seem to be the preferred one. So things like the trees and vehicles and things like that all tend to be modelled in meters. Okay, the mapping also becomes a nightmare if you use millimeters. The numbers are ridiculous. Same with the size of suns and lamps and things. It gets really awkward if you're not using meters. Okay, next thing we need to do is customize the project paths. So this is to tell it where to find the pictures that we're going to be using. Okay, so here's the folder that you would download from MyDundee. It'll unpack to this set of files. So if I show it with medium-sized icons, okay, the first file here is a material library, which makes it a lot easier when you're using the same materials on different buildings. Okay, then I've got the file that I was playing with this morning, the test file, and 2 rows angle and the cascading stair as well. These have both been fully mapped and materialed already using these JPEGs. Okay, so there shouldn't be anything, when you open these files it shouldn't come up saying I can't find Dundee masonry.jpg. That shouldn't happen. Okay, because they're all here. Okay, so most of these are kind of building ones, but then there's a cluster here of leaves and bark and things, and these go on the trees if you decided to download the trees and use those as well. Okay, so there's color maps and there is opacity maps. So it makes it look like the leaves, have gaps between them. Imagine these being your fingers and you hold your fingers up. The opacity map makes that trick happen. So it looks like the leaves have actually got their shape. Okay, if we get a chance I'll just demo that in the CS file, because we've got a grill on the ground in the on the cascading stair which has been opacity mapped. Okay, then there's the 4R drawing. That's the one we pull into 3D Studio, and the panelled door is just for a bit more teaching input at the end. Okay, so 3D Studio doesn't know where to find these pictures. It needs to be given guidance to find this folder. Okay, so it's customize, configure project paths, external files. Okay, there's a collection here already that are 3D Studio's own ones, and then we've got the maps for this that I've used for different projects. So I've got one here for the group site model generally, a class we did a couple of weeks ago, xfrog is for the trees, and what I'll do, I'll just delete this one and just add it again. So you'd be adding the maps folder. So I downloaded it and unpacked it onto my desktop. So you go into the folder. Okay, so you need to see the contents and then you click use path. Okay, if there's any other folders in there that you want it also to look in, you can click add subpaths at this stage, but there aren't any subfolders here. Okay, click OK now. Okay, now when you first start 3D Studio now, it defaults to the Arnold renderer. This little session here is based on the ART one. So you go to the render configuration and change the renderer to ART. Close that.